right, hello and welcome. It's going to be a solo episode or video today because I want to talk about shrinking, and I know that neither Kevin nor Kirsten gonna. I don't know very many people who watch this show personally. Shrinking is a show on Apple TV, which is basically the way I like to describe it is it's a workplace comedy about therapists who are very bad at their jobs because they probably violate and overstep in every single ethical line is crossed. I will say, don't judge the show by that measure, by the fact that these therapists are not actually good or ethical therapists. Judge the show by its quality, which I think it's a comedy, it's a sitcom, and the number one thing that a comedy has to do is be funny. So the question is this show funny? Yes, yes, it is. I think seasons one and two were pretty solid. I didn't quite love this show, but season three, I've noticed has elevated um, beyond what I thought was even possible from the show. Seasons one and two, I felt that the show was simply, it was good. It was kind of good enough to keep me watching, but it wasn't good enough to where I felt this is one of the best shows on TV. And now with season three, I absolutely do feel it is one of the best shows on TV. Um, season one felt like it was kind of trying to find its footing. Season two realized it had to be a little bit different. And it basically, the conceit of this show is you have Jason Segel, he's a therapist, who he's gone through some trauma at the very beginning of the show. We learn that his wife has died tragically in a car crash, and that has caused a strain on his relationship with, well, one, his daughter, but also just everyone around him, his neighbors, his friends, his patients, his coworkers. And he was kind of spiraling. And I know that this sounds very, very heavy, but I promise you this show is a comedy. And I think season three has just gone beyond that. I feel, for one, I think a lot of the trauma that was there for many of the characters is going away. That's not to say that they don't have their issues, and I'll get into that because the show is all about dealing with personal issues. But I think a lot of the heaviness of the show has left. Um, and now we're in this nice state where everything is it's a lot more happy and the characters are trying to move on. In that journey, of course, it's a sitcom. There's going to be some hilarious situations, but that is kind of essentially what season three is about. It's about people who are very, very close to each other, and they love each other, and it's about what they say, what they don't say, because they really, really don't want to hurt each other, but need they also need each other because they need need a shoulder to lean on or to cry on. I want to talk about and by the way, I'm getting into full spoilers for seasons one, two, and three. The whole wife dying thing that was established at the very beginning of the show. It's not a spoiler. Everything else is going to be a bit of a spoiler. I'm not going to give away like crazy details or anything like that, though. But we see season three start, and the main crux of season three is Jason Segel, who's about to say, his name is Jimmy. He's about to say goodbye to his daughter, Alice, because Alice is graduating high school and she's going to go to college. And it's hard for him because she was one of the people who really pulled him out of his spiral that he was going into. It was a very self-destructive thing. And his daughter is a reason why he climbed out of that. And a lot of seasons one and two is trying to repair that relationship. And now that relationship is kind of it's there, it's solid, it's repaired, but he has to say goodbye very soon. Or not goodbye, but at least, bye for quite some time because she's also moving out of state. It's not like she's moving an hour away where he can see her every weekend. And that is And that is kind of huge for him. And I think it's such a clever thing where, because one of the questions was, hey, where does season two go? It feels like everything's healed. And in season three, it's, hey, this relationship that is the center of the story it's good now, but now they got to be separated. And then another subplot is uh, Harrison Ford's character Paul, who is um, who's facing a Parkinson's diagnosis. Now, this was established in the other seasons, but I think this season is when they're really, really exploring it more. He's feeling a lot of his side effects, or not the side effects, symptoms, sorry. And you actually even see Michael J. Fox uh, appear in this season briefly, which was, I mean, it's just awesome to see Michael J. Fox. I watched Back to the Future. I love Back to the Future. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And it's kind of sad. I thought Michael J. Fox, I think, was on track to be a huge, huge star. And unfortunately, Parkinson's did kind of derail his acting career. So it's really great to see him be be in this show and basically just kind of being himself. And even though Paul, the Harrison Ford character, is his therapist, there's times where Michael J. Fox is supporting Paul's character. And listen, I mean, I don't have Parkinson's, so I can't say this, but Michael J. Fox has said that Harrison Ford kind of um, nailed the role because, and I'm going to paraphrase him, but basically what he said was, Parkinson's is not about your hands shaking, at least from an acting perspective. Parkinson's is all about the eyes. Um, and I mean, according to him, Harrison Ford delivers. According to me, I think Harrison Ford delivers. He was always good. I mean, he's a great actor. He was great in seasons one and two. I think this season is kind of next level. And even again, this is another relationship that him and Jimmy have really gotten in a good spot. They are kind of like father and son. And well, now he's leaving also because he wants to live in Connecticut with his daughter, which perfectly makes sense, of course. So well, we have another instance of a relationship being built and then having to be forced apart. And that's where the conflict comes from. And another source of conflict is he has to decide, is he going to leave his practice with Jimmy or is he going to leave his practice with Gabby? And ultimately, ultimately he does leave it with Gabby. But Gabby's going through her own stuff. She has a well, for one, she wants to start a trauma center. She wants to do things that are more serious, work with veterans, work with people who have severe uh mental health issues, as opposed to kind of their standard, I believe it's cognitive behavioral therapy they're doing. I don't exactly know if that's what it is. Again, I think the actual therapy in this show is probably the weakest aspect. It is nothing like real life, but that's what she wants to do, and she goes through her own trials and tribulations in this season. She meets with a patient. She decides she wants to do this, and then she meets with a patient who is severely struggling, and then that patient ultimately, and this is a spoiler, ultimately does die. We don't know if it was, I mean, it was an OD, but we don't know if it was intentional or not. That's kind of left as a mystery, and she blames herself for that. And a lot of what she, a lot of what she has to do is recognize that, it's not about her. She's doing her best to help her patient, and unfortunately, um, her patient. hmm, I'm trying to phrase this the right, the mo the. I'm gonna phrase this as well as I can. Her patient did not kind of meet her halfway. Her patient herself did not put in the work for help, and it led to a tragedy. Um, and we see her lose confidence in herself. We see her other patients lose confidence in her. And it really takes the other characters, especially Paul, to get her to recognize that, hey, she did everything she could. And sometimes, sometimes, unfortunately, it's tragic. Tragedies happen and things don't go her way, or things are not going to go your way. And, you have to learn to, again, you have to learn to move on and just do the best that you possibly can. Oh, it looks like we lost my camera there for a second. And okay, I say all this because or I say all this, it makes it sound very, very depressing. Again, the show is not depressing. There are moments where it's gonna make you cry. I think there is an awesome scene between Harrison Ford and Jason Segel towards the in the finale where Jason Segel is basically starting to regress. He has done well. He is starting to move on, but then Alice leaves, and he's starting to go in his spiral again. And Harrison Ford has snapped him out of it. Um, and again, Harrison Ford, I can't remember exactly what the words were, but it was something along the lines of you moving on is not about forgetting the past. It's about acknowledging it, um, feeling the pain, but choosing to move forward regardless of it. I mean, it was just a beautiful and touching moment. And I mentioned this again. It, I mentioned this because that is what the show is about. It is about people lifting them, lifting each other out of pain. It's people going through pain, but they're helping each other. Jimmy helps his daughter. His daughter helps him, who helps Paul, um, and Paul will help Gabby, whoever it is. And so the show, despite dealing with heavy themes, does not really get depressing per se. And ultimately, I think this ensemble is just great because this show is hilarious. I mean, Sean has his own storylines again, similar. It's moving on, but it's a little bit more silly. Like he meets an ex and he's like, "Hey, I'm a different person," and then he realizes, okay, maybe I'm more boring of a person than I used to be. Where he's like, "Oh, I used to be more impulsive and just kind of would do whatever." Like for example, there's this whole episode where everyone wants to go clubbing and he doesn't want to go clubbing because he wants to work at his food truck. And he has to recognize that, hey, even though he's a different person and he's not impulsive, that doesn't mean he can't allow himself to, be impulsive and fun in a controlled manner. Um, I think Brian continues to be my favorite character in this show. I mean, he is just so funny. Him and his husband Charlie are also my favorite couple, and they just in this season they're adopting, or not exactly adopting. I mean, it's like a surrogacy thing, but they're having a baby, and just seeing Brian freak out at every moment and just worry how he's going to be as a father. And also, there was a whole episode about he was worried that the mom had not signed the release forms yet, so he's not gonna get the baby. And that's again, that's him letting go. Where he's the whole episode, he's trying to get her and nudge her to sign the forms, while she's literally in the middle of giving birth, and the other characters have to tell him to say have to, or the other characters have to convince him to just yo chill, relax, let go. if it if she doesn't send the forms, ultimately she is the one giving birth and it's her choice. Now, she does sign the forms, he gets the baby, everything works out. But again, it's thematically, it's he moves on and he ultimately gets what he needs. Liz and Derek, Derek has his own small subplot where he nearly gets a heart attack and it leads to some great moments of humor. Again, this show takes heavy, heavy topics and makes them hilarious. Liz is a character who, um, she really didn't work for me in the first season. Season two, I think she started to grow on me. But I wasn't like, I didn't love her. Oh my God, this season, she's one of my favorite characters. She was just hilarious. And of course, there's the other Derek, where he wants to, uh, he wants to marry Gabby. He wants to take things more seriously, and she is like scared, because she still has a little bit of trauma from her ex-husband. And I mean, he's just such a nice guy. He's so patient with her, and eventually she learns to kind of move on, and she ends up proposing to him, after she finds out he's going to propose to her. It's a bit of a cliche, um, or a trope, but I mean, it works so well. And I will say, I think cliches and tropes do exist, but this show makes them work because it taps into it just taps into things that are kind of universal truths. Um, things like things like graduation and mortality. Um, and because of that, this show just makes it all work. Um, and so yeah, ultimately, I think oh, there's a there. We also see Jeff Daniels in this season. He plays Jason Segel's dad, and another moment of Jason Segel having to learn to move on is he I guess resent is a strong word, but I'm just going to use it. He resents his father for not really being there to support him. He was never there as a child, even though Jeff Daniels would always say, "Hey, I saw him hit a home run in Little League," and Jason Segel later reveals that, "Hey, he wasn't there." And you know, Jeff Daniels, he's a character who everybody loves him. Alice, the the Colby Smulders character, I can't quite remember her name off the top of my head. But she loves him, and it's there, and um, he acts like he's been a pillar of support, but you see Jason Segel, or Jimmy, I keep referring to the actors. Jimmy is saying that, hey, he was never there for me. He wasn't there for me when I was like growing up, at least not during many of the important moments, like he claims to be. He also wasn't there when his wife uh, passed away, despite him saying that he would always be there. Uh, and it kind of bugs him that he his dad has a great relationship with Alice. That's something that he never really had with him. Again, that is he one of the things that Jimmy has to learn is that doesn't matter. Um, because the past is the past. So he should try to be happy with Jeff Daniels trying to have a relationship with his daughter. So in that sense, it's about forgiveness. Yeah, ultimately, it just feels it's very very silly. The humor is very very silly. I'm not gonna lie. It's not like the most clever jokes ever where they're setting stuff up and they're paying stuff off. It um it it feels a little bit like it's a little slapsticky at times. Almost like slapstick dialogue more than it is actual like visual gags. Um but I think the show works because ultimately it is funny. The characters are very very lovable. Um but it's also just honest. You know, it taps into it taps into us, the viewer, and when when Paul, because he's the one who gives the most like pieces of wisdom, when he's talking to Jimmy or Gabby or Alice, it feels like he's talking to you, the viewer at home. I think that's why, I don't know a lot of people who have seen the show, but I know that the people who do watch the show just love this show, and I think that is why, because it just does they just do a great job at connecting with people, connecting with each other in terms of characters, and also connecting with the audience. So yeah, all of that is just so yeah, all that is to say, like, this show is awesome. I highly, highly recommend it. And I'm gonna give a rating as a reminder. We do things on the script coverage scale. There is pass when we think a movie is or a show is not so great. Consider when we think it's pretty decent. Recommend when we think it's great. Um, as a reminder, this is not an actual recommendation. It's just a score. And with that said, Shrinking, you probably have guessed it. It's a recommend. Um, just one of the funniest shows on TV, um one of the one of the most heartfelt shows on TV, and it's something that I really think is underrated. I feel like everyone I would find it hard to believe somebody who watched this show and said they didn't like it. I just feel like it would just work for everybody. Um But yeah, I mean that's kind of I just wanted to hop on and talk about Shrinking real quick. So thank you so much for for watching or listening. And I will see you next time. Thank you.